Hi, my name is Ade. I'm a newly qualified social worker. I joined the Pontypool Wellbeing team in September and I work with RSU. But prior to that, my final placement as a student was here in Torvine.
Hi, my name is Arzu. I'm a social worker with the Pontypool Wellbeing team. Prior to this, I was a student, having done all my placements in Torvine. I qualified in 2022. So, what surprised you most about the role of social worker when you were a student?
Probably around the conversations to do with finance. I found that difficult because it was about meeting people at the first instance and having to talk about finances. But also I understand where we're coming from as social services, that we've got to let them know about it from the start so as to manage expectations and also to be open and honest with them from the beginning.
Yeah, that is challenging, but you need to let people know if they're going to have an assessed charge for formal services so they can budget properly.
And don't forget, Azu, we must offer direct payments information. Most people I've met have not heard about it. I know it helps them to manage their own care. What about you, Azu? What surprised you the most?
It must be the number of mental capacity assessments we had to do. I expected to do a few on placement, but there were far more than I could have imagined.
Yes, people's lives are complex. For example, like in our day-to-day lives, we take a lot of decisions that we take for granted without realizing it. And that's why, for some people, we need to explore the decision-making process.
Yeah, mental capacity assessments used to really worry me. But if you shadow your colleagues and focus on the Mental Capacity Act and the Code of Practice for Wales, you should find things a lot easier.
Looking back on my student placement, I found it really challenging working with adults, as it was my first time working in adult services. But the main thing for me then was knowing that we got to explore people's options, and also not everyone would be eligible for formal support.
Yeah, I agree. It can be really challenging working with adults because sometimes you're discussing really awkward topics, especially around finances like wills, lasting power of attorney, and these can be challenging conversations to navigate.
That's right. This reminds me of the skills we need to have when having difficult conversations with people. Like, you need to be able to ask open-ended questions and then reflect on what's been said about the situation so everyone knows where they're at. Also, we need to summarize what's been said for everyone to have a good picture of what's going to happen and know what's been said. And it helps to build relationships and also to foster trust with people.
Speaking of forming good relationships, I think that's really important, especially because a lot of the time we work with people who are in a crisis or who are really unwell, like they're dying. Sometimes we're there in the darkest period of people's lives, and it just shows how important our social work roles can be.
Arzu, what are your top 3 tips for student social workers?
So take the time to learn about the charging policy and finances, and also take the time to learn about direct payments. This will help you massively in your role. So I know mental capacity assessments can be really daunting. What I would recommend is look up the legislation, get yourself familiar with it. I would speak with your PE, which is your practice educator, for any advice on how to approach maybe trickier ones. Shadow your colleagues, because they will be able to show you the different ways that they work, and you can kind of find your groove then. And you can also look up mental capacity assessments on YouTube if you need any examples. Finally, difficult conversations are unavoidable when you're a social worker. Take the time in supervision to reflect upon them so that you can be better prepared for them in the future.